All right. Hey, folks. No, I just need to check because I couldn't hear Eric when we were in the sort of the build up to this. But can you write in the post a comment in the chat window or in the comments window if you can hear me? Just need to establish that first. So if you are here, please just write I can hear in the comments window. All right.
Hey, can you hear me, Richard, now?
Yes, I can. Yep. All right. Elaine Lambs, hear you. Umberto, yes, good. All right. So it looks like we're fine. Ross can. Hey, Ross. Okay, that's good, guys. Just type in where you're from. We've got people I know on Facebook. This is a live broadcast where we're broadcasting to Facebook, LinkedIn, and somewhere else, maybe YouTube at the same time. So that's good. All right. Guys, I'm going to get straight into this. We've got sort of half an hour for the I'll run through, what I'm going to run through around high fees, and then we'll take questions for 10 or 15 minutes, however long you guys have, and that'll be the format. Okay, so yep, I can hear you, Eric.
Now. Hello, everybody. I had a little tech issue. I had to restart. So, Richard, take it away. I know we're going to have a lot to cover in the next half an hour.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, let me share my screen. So, just to give you context, guys, Eric and I run a program called 6 Maps, which is where we work with architects to help them win better projects. And this really is, I guess, the high fee portion is certainly a key part of that I guess, I'm just going to draw you a little map here, actually. Remind me later. Okay, now I need to share my screen here. On here. Present, that would help, wouldn't it? Share screen. Okay. All right, here we go. That's good. All right, guys. Okay. So when it comes to high fees, I know that it was always my surprise when I first came into working with architects is that you guys weren't as well paid as everybody thinks you are. And if I asked you now, just inside your head, how good are you as an architect? If you've got the best, you've got the worst, where would you fit on that spectrum? Right? You don't have to type it in, but just in your head, where do you fit? And I'm going to say, let's say you say I'm a 7 or an 8. Okay, that's cool. Then I'll say on a spectrum of 0 to 10, where are you in terms of the income you're earning? 10 would be dream projects. 0 would be terrible projects. Where on that spectrum would you be? Sorry, and not projects, but you do it for projects and you can do it for fees. So how good are your projects and how good are your fees? So what I find is a lot of architects rate themselves, their fees, somewhere around 4 on average, 4 or 5 if they're lucky. Not many say I'm a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 architect and I'm charging 7 or 8 out of 10 fees. There's usually a bit of a disconnect. So some of these things we're going to go through today will give you some insights. I mean, we've got 30 minutes and I could spend all day on this, but these will give you insights on maybe what you're missing, right? So a lot of, there's Sun Tzu, who was the Chinese general philosopher and philosopher, said every battle is won or lost before it's ever fought. Meaning the way you set yourself up for battle, or in our case, business, winning projects, what you do before you even turn up is pretty important, right? And these laws really, if you harness these laws, you'll find that you are able to charge higher fees. And you just stack the odds in your favor. You're swimming with the current. Okay. All right. So the first law is around high value clients. Some of these you'd say, well, they're pretty self-evident. Obviously, I have to have high value clients. But even though you'd say, well, that's common sense, most of you either haven't thought of that. You must have thought of it, but you're not doing it. Okay. Now I know, having worked with architects for the past 10 years, that well, let me tell you a quick story first. A friend of mine, we went to this marketing conference in St. Louis, and it was a wee bit of a rough neighborhood, the hotel we were staying in. And outside the window one morning, there was a noise, and it sounded like someone was being mugged, right? And there's a guy saying, give me your wallet, give me your money. To which the reply from the other man was, man, I ain't got no money. He said, don't give me that. Give me all your money. I need it. And he said, man, you're robbing the wrong guy. I'm homeless. Right? And this, poor mugger, poor guy, he was trying to get money off a homeless man. Now, the metaphor, you need to think about that metaphor a little bit. And while these people may not be homeless, when they have major issues with budget, or they're completely unrealistic with budget, I want you to think from this point on as them as effectively, as far as you're concerned, they're a homeless man. They don't have the money, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, I would say, having worked with architects for 10 years, Eric and I, we would have seen, from what I can see, about at least 50% of the projects that come across an architect's desk, or the inquiries that come in, they're not all homeless people, but 50% of them should be turned away. They are either not good people, not worth working with. They have unrealistic budgets. Their project is not really something you should or would want to do. Maybe it's too small, or maybe it's something else. You should be accepting only less than half. Now, the problem with that is you need more deal flow. You need more people coming through the door so that you can turn half of them away. But that's a fact, right? Second one is, we know that in terms of markets, in terms of high value clients, we know the 80-20, the Pareto principle, 80-20 principle tells us that 20% of the inputs generate 80% of the results. And it's, 80-20 applies very much in the marketing world. So whatever market you want to go into, 20% of that market will be high value, and 80% will be low value. Right? It's just how the universe is set up, right? And so, one of the things I look to do with people is steer them, first get them to work out who is the 20%. It depends on the market you're in, and depends on how you define the 80-20. But you do need to go through a process of defining what the 80-20 is for you, and then targeting the top 20% for you, right? Obviously, money will be one of those aspects, but it's not necessarily the only one. It could be that they're willing to spend money. Some people have money, not willing to spend it. Some people just don't have the money, right? And ideally, you're going into a situation with these. One of the things that makes these people high-value clients is they see your value, all right? So we're going to move on from high-value clients. It's kind of obvious, but when you dig below the surface, you can see that there are certain things that can and should be done which aren't being done. All right, so have a think about law number one. You've got to be focused on high-value clients. Law number two, now this is an interesting one. This is not so obvious. You've got to be delivering a high-value result to a high-value client. Okay, when you've got a high-value client, yeah, maybe you'll make some money, maybe not. Not all high-value clients necessarily want to spend money if they don't see a difference. Now, you've got to be delivering a high-value result. What do I mean by that? Well, what's the high-value result an architect delivers? Well, they get a building built. Yep, sure. But remember the 80-20 principle. Not all, outcomes are the same. So what I would suggest you consider when you're looking for high value results is, well, I'll give you some examples. Difficult to get permits would be an example of a high value result. Someone who was struggling to get a permit, they own an expensive piece of land. They've probably spent money on engineers and geotech and other people to get things to a certain point, and they're struggling to get a permit. They are less price resistant or fee resistant than someone who has an easy ride, right? Kind of obvious. In fact, any problem, anyone who has an expensive problem, in fact, I'm going to put that in there. Anyone who has an expensive problem is unresistant to higher fees, right? They can, they're in the case where they cannot afford not to. I teach a thing called return on design, which is primarily about working out, high value results for people. And I want you to think back, actually just do this little exercise where you think back and you think of all either you have helped a client make a lot of money or you've helped a client save a lot of money, right? And think about those situations where you've done that. You've either made them a lot of money or saved them a lot of money. Now, you're in the business as an architect of often making people money or saving people money. You've made a lot of millionaires, right? A lot of people have made a lot of money based on your skill, knowledge, and experience. And you've delivered high value results, but you haven't, it's not how you win your new projects. You don't talk about these things. So it's a good idea to do a bit of an audit on all the high value results that you have achieved and record them, right? For yourself, for your own confidence, because it'll help with your mindset over here, but also so that you've got stories to tell, okay? So high value. Okay, so let's say you've got a high value client. You have some high value results, which I tell you another thing, it really does pay to specialize in those high value results. So once you've worked out what is your high value results for the high value clients, you kind of specialize in that. Or at least you have a specialist message that sort of sends the signal out to those people that result is gettable. Okay. Next one, law number 3. Just going to check with time because I do want to stick to time. Okay, law number 3 is it's not enough to have a high value client. Sometimes you just need a high value client, high value result, you tell them, but you do need a high value process. You'll find with anyone selling really expensive stuff that seldom do they use the standard procedure for selling their stuff, right? They usually have their own unique way of selling their stuff, because if you just use the same way of selling your stuff that everybody else does, then you are going to look like everybody else. And as we know, most architects, I think, under-earn and undercharge, right? So let's say we're looking to move you into the top, 9 or 10 in the fee bracket. We can't have you selling like everybody else. So we talked about Sun Tzu, having that preparation. Now, have a think about some companies that charge a premium. Now, timeshare, people selling timeshare, they don't sell like normal properties. They lure you. It's different. It's not particularly, I don't like their method, but it is effective. They get you off away. They incentivize you to come on a bus trip. You kind of can't get back. You have to go watch the videos. You have to go through their process. Then you meet with a salesperson. Then if you say no, you meet with the second salesperson. It goes like that. Now, I don't like that particular approach, but the point is it's different and it does work, right? They take people away from their normal location. Another one would be an Apple store where they take you to a different location. They take you to their own shop and they put you in their own environment. Everything about an Apple store is pretty much different to a normal computer store, right? The sales process is different. When you walk in, someone greets you with a tablet and takes your name and contact details and really just reserves an appointment with you. Well, that's not how you buy things in a normal shop. Okay, so they've changed the selling process. First class would be the same. When you're flying first class, it cannot be the same process and system as everyone else, right? And so this whole, you've got to create a high value process which is different to a normal process if you're going to charge high fees. Okay. We'll take questions at the end, actually. I'll take questions at the end. Now, by the way, while I'm doing this, in fact, I'm going to give away, we're going to give away one document which summarizes some aspect of this. It's a newsletter I wrote about a year ago, and it's around how to charge. I think the whole process around how to raise your fees up to over $300,000 a year. Okay, now the 300,000 is slightly an arbitrary number I made up, but the point is, if you're used to earning 100, this would be the process to take you up over 300. Obviously, if you're earning 300, you could use the same process and take yourself up higher. Now, if you want a copy of that, just type in big idea letter in the chat window, and I'll take you through the 9 steps. Okay, so just type big idea letter in the comments, and we'll get that to you. All right, law number 4. Okay, so we've identified high value clients. We have identified some high value results that we can deliver. We've choreographed a high value process, which is a bit different to other architects. By now, you probably have, to some degree, limited supply. You are no longer. If I go to, I was at I've just moved to a new town, Wanaka in New Zealand. So we don't know that many people, but we got invited to this thing last night, and people say, what do you do? What do you do? And of course, I'm in a room, and there's 3 builders there. So they say, what do you do? I'm a builder. Fair enough. There's a low end builder, a medium, and then there's a high end builder. That's not my point, though. But if I asked you at a dinner party or a drinks party what you did, you'd probably say I'm an architect. Now, nothing wrong with that, because that's what you're qualified to do. The only problem with that is, from a marketing point of view, there's a lot of architects around. There's 80,000 architects registered in the US alone, and it doesn't make you particularly special other than the fact you're an architect, and it's hard to do. But if there's a room full of architects, it doesn't make you special. So one of the things you have to do, and to some degree, if you've done this stuff, laws 1, 2, and 3, you're kind of already halfway there. But you do need to limit supply. So we don't want to talk so much about being an architect, nothing wrong with being an architect, but we need to talk about the special services that we provide and the way we do it. Now, there are a number of ways to limit supply. We kind of want to be the only architect who is offering a result that a small number of high value people who are looking to get some high value result are looking to get. We kind of want a monopoly on that. Now, De Beers diamonds in South Africa. Originally, they were reasonably scarce, and then in South Africa, they discovered in a river, they kept finding diamonds everywhere. And the problem was the market got flooded, and they were going, this is terrible. Diamonds are no longer a scarce resource. So what the companies did is they formed something called De Beers Consolidated Mining, which is where all the diamond companies ended up going in together and effectively creating one company, which then proceeded to limit the supply of diamonds so that they could maintain their value, right? If everyone can find diamonds, it's a problem. So it really effectively price fixing, forming an oligopoly, and off to the races we are. That's one way. If you could buy all the other architects out in your area and just form one firm, well, that's going to be hard to do. So you can't do that. The other thing that we like doing is creating a new category. So, Bruce Lee, born in San Francisco, but then moved to Hong Kong and moved back to San Francisco, was a kung fu fighter, and he'd do a lot of fighting on the streets. And after a while, he realized there were problems with kung fu fighting on the streets, because if an issue of fighting someone else who did kung fu, they wouldn't follow the kung fu rules. And kung fu was only good when you were fighting against people following the rules. So he created a different martial art called Jeet Kune Do. And in Jeet Kune Do, you're allowed to be a little more flexible than Kung Fu. And his mantra was think like water, right? You've got to be flexible. You've got to be fluid. And he created Jeet Kune Do, which he said was superior. Now, if you bought into his philosophy and his story about Jeet Kune Do, he was the only game in town, right? He became #1 in a category of one on day one, right? So that's one of the things that we look and do. We look to create new categories, which immediately limits supply because you're the only person in it, right? It's a bit of an art to it. You can be a specialist. That certainly limits the supply and your perceived, the supply of your particular type. You can do a specialist. That's sort of the blue belt level. Creating new categories would be more of a black belt level. The other thing you want to do, and all these builders last night, lucky for them, not through great marketing, just the market down here, they all had waiting lists for clients. Now, if you've got a waiting list, then it's a good thing, and it plays into this thing of, you are scarce and supply, which is where we want you, scarce and supply, right? So you've got high value client, high value result that you can deliver. You have a high value process. It is perceived. It's perceived that you are in scarce supply, right? Either you've constructed it or it's actually a fact. Then what we need is law number 5. We need proof. In fact, more than proof, we actually need the way to be able to explain your value. You need to be able to articulate. You need to be able to articulate your value and prove your value. I go articulate and prove, right? It's not enough to be the best, have high value clients with high value results and limiting supply if no one knows about you. So you've got to be able to tell the story. Now, in terms of stories, you do have to have the words, right? You do have to craft words which explain elegantly and quickly what and how you do it, right? Now, I'll show you, I'll once I've gone through these, this mind map, I'll draw something on the screen and I'll show you how I do it. And it will be something that you will be able to do. I'll do that at the end when we get to the Q&A. But you need a story, or you need some visuals that support, your specialness. And then you need to prove it. Now, proving it is interesting. If we're in a court of law and you were trying to prove something, the level of proof would need to be a much higher standard than a selling situation, obviously. Right? If you quote any numbers or pieces of evidence, they will go over that piece of evidence. They'll check its validity. They'll send out private investigators sometimes to check the validity of it. And that, it'll be really, really, really thorough in a court of law. In a selling situation, sometimes just a good story is proof enough, right? Sometimes just a good story. Now, there are other things you can use. You can use numbers, stats. Statistics count as proof. Stories count as proof. Graphics count as proof. I mean, they're not necessarily airtight proof, all these things, but they look it. They can look it. What else counts as proof for a buyer? Well, endorsements by their friend. So, if you were referred and endorsed, that counts as proof in their mind. See what I mean? I mean, their friend may have no idea, but it doesn't matter. Different environment. Okay, so there you go. Law number 5, you've got to be able to articulate and prove it. And law number 6 is mindset. Right now, what I've noticed is I'm not an architect. I could never be an architect. I would be a terrible architect. But what I've noticed in working with architects is for some reason, when people first come to us or, have worked with me, there's a general lack of confidence around fees, right? And I always wonder why. And I remember asking the first architect I ever worked with, I said, where are you out of 10 for your ability? She said, about an 8. I said, where are you for your projects that you're working on? She said, about a 5. Where are you for your fees out of 10? She said, about a 3. 3, 4. I said, why so low if you're an 8 out of 10 architect? She said, oh, and then she started to rattle things off. And I'm a woman was the first one. I said, what's that got to do with it? Oh, well, you know, it's harder for women. Okay, anything else? Yes, I'm young. What's that got to do with it? Oh, well, people, you know, expect that if you're a bit older, you know, you'll charge. Really? Okay, any other reasons? Yes, you know, because I'm a small one-woman band, I've got low overheads. What's that got to do with it? Well, you know, if you've got bigger overheads, you're going to charge more money. Well, maybe the reason you've got more bigger overheads is because you're charging bigger money, right? So we talked about all these things, and, you know, I managed to convince her in the end that they're all just in her head, right? Woman, young, small overheads. And I know they are because, you know, when we work with all sorts of clients, most people lack confidence when it comes to around fees. They've all got reasons as to why their fees aren't higher, right? Maybe my clients, you know, wouldn't pay that. Now, is that a fact or is that a belief? It's usually a belief. It's usually a belief. And I know that because everybody I've worked on to put their fees up, I've never had someone come back when they've done it properly. No one's ever come back and said, I'm losing business because I put my fees up. No one, right? So most people price from fear that they'll lose the deal, fear of what the other person, the client will think. And from what I've seen, most architects are lovely people, you know, and architects are pleasers. They like to keep everybody happy, right? It's good to keep people happy with your work and delivering a great job. But when it comes to quoting your fees, that's not a good time to keep everybody happy. You know, remember what I said at the start, 50% of people you should be refusing. You should be turning away because either they or their project are not good enough. Right? So pricing from fear is a really bad idea. It affects your fees. It affects your income. It affects where you live. It affects the car you drive. It affects how you live life. It affects how you sleep at night. Right? You've got to master this art of pricing properly. You must do. You know, it's such a fast thing it changes everything overnight when you do it properly. Okay, where does confidence come from? Well, confidence comes from, I guess, knowing what your value really is, right? Now, if you're going to be a generalist, that's kind of hard. It's harder to know your value when you're a generalist and there's a lot of other people like you. But when you go through these laws and start to narrow yourself down, narrow the supply of you and your type of services and increase the value, be able to explain and prove the value, then your value in your own mind goes up. And the first sale you've got to make is to yourself, right? You've got to be strong in yourself when you're charging higher fees. You've got to know and have the attitude that, you know, I am better value than the other options. If you don't believe it, the client, you know, you've got to sell to yourself first. Having a good peer group is really important. Other people who are doing similar thing to you, i.e., studying the art of winning better projects, studying the art of raising their fees, studying the art of increasing their value, studying the art of increasing their scarcity. It helps to be surrounded by other people who are also having the same fears as you. So having a peer group's a good idea. And having the collateral. Now, sometimes, particularly at the start, you may not have the confidence to say things in a certain way that I tell you to say it, right? Or some of these ideas in theory, yes, I get it all, Richard. It makes sense. But what exactly do I say and how do I say it? Or in fact, even if I did say it the way you tell me to say it, if I follow the scripts, I would still lack a bit of confidence. That's why sometimes it helps to have collateral, stuff that's pre-written, videos that are pre-built, which do some of this positioning for you. And remember that quote here, every battle is won or lost before it's ever fought. Sometimes having that collateral which supports you being, you know, effectively deploying a lot of these laws, having that type of stuff pre-made, You can send it to people. You don't have to think too much about it. You can send them a series of emails or a document or a video, and having that there, it kind of, the client turns up to some degree pre-sold. They have some expectations around your fees, some expectations around their project, cost range. If you're in a position to do that, it's all been done, and expectations have been set. Okay. Now, the third thing around mindset that you probably want to have. So one is, you don't want to be pricing from fear. You need to know your value. Second one is, you need to be confident, and that's a bit of a work on, and you got to surround yourself with the right people. The third one is, you from a mindset point of view, you need to know, or take the attitude, because it's true, that I am not for everybody, right? I am not for everybody. I have as that movie Taken says, I have a particular set of skills, right? Skills that I've learned over a long period of time that make someone like me very valuable for the right type of person, but not everybody. Not everybody you are valuable for. And you got to know that, right? So you got to know who you're for. You got to know who you're not for. You got to know what value, what unique value that you can bring that other people can't bring, right? And you take the attitude when you're speaking to these people, these inquiries, that you are qualifying. I'm qualifying you to see if you're a fit to work with me. Right now, at the moment, I know most of this people on this live stream will be going into an initial meeting almost feeling like it's a sales call, and feeling like you are trying to sell yourself to the client. That, ironically, doesn't work as well as when you go into the meeting. And if you've done all these other things, right, and you take the approach that you are qualifying them, you are looking to see if they are a fit for you. Because remember, only 50% of the projects are actually worth taking on. There's too many homeless people out there, right? And you let them know that you are qualifying them. They're qualifying you too, but you're also qualifying them, right? It's a mindset thing. You should let them know in advance that you say no a lot, right? You tell them that. You might tell them you've got a waiting list. You tell them, I don't take on everybody. I need to see if they're a fit, right? I need, so I'm happy to meet with you, but please be aware that I don't take on everybody I meet, even if they've got a project, and I'm not a good fit for everybody, but certainly happy to meet you, find out about your project, find out about you. And if I'm the best person for you, I'll let you know. If I'm not, and I know someone who's better, I can make a suggestion as to who might be a better fit for you. How does that sound? Sounds good. Okay. By the way, there'll be no design in this meeting. This is really just an initial thing to understand the scope of what you look to do. Right. And I'll send you an email. It'll outline what we're going to do in this initial meeting. It'll outline what we're not going to do. People often want to get into design and things like that, and I'll just outline. We won't be doing that. I don't even know if I'm a good fit for you. Okay, so you get the idea of the mindset here. It's that type of mindset. Now, I would have people explain all that before the meeting. I would have them communicate that clearly, and even send emails and maybe videos that explain that in advance. And then I would remind them on the day. All right. So those are the 6 laws for big fees. Eric, if people have got questions, I think we're happy to answer them. So you can type any questions in. And remember, at the start, I said, if you type big idea letter into the comments window, then we will get you a big idea letter, which goes into the process. There's a 9-step process that we use when we're coaching people to helping them raise their fees. And it's all built on an example of going from, say, $100,000 a year to $300,000 a year, and what the steps are. This is part of it, but it's just one part of it. Eric.
All right. So, yeah, great presentation, Richard. Thank you. Definitely got a lot of people who've typed in, big idea or big idea letter. So just keep doing that. Or, if you haven't done it already, we'll be checking this afterward and making sure that you get that sent to you. So see, one, Donna Rodman said something about team building success for as a benefit in teams. It can be proof of value. So I guess I'm going to interpret that as if you've built a team, you've had a successful business, and you have grown your company, then you are managing a larger organization, and that shows that you can deliver larger projects. So that, I imagine, is at least one angle for saying we're a strong resource for particular types of projects.
Big fees, yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting though. I'll do a comment on that. But we've got a lot of clients in New York, or architects in New York, and they've told some amazing stories of these big firms. Obviously, everyone's trying to do skyscrapers, and the developers will go to the architects and say, hey, listen, for you to do a skyscraper here, it's going to be good for your CV. It's going to be good for your company. And a lot of these architect firms, which are largish, this is an extreme case, obviously, but they will do the design for almost nothing, right? They'll do the design for nothing to win the project because the developer, it's good on their CV. So it's interesting. Yeah. Big firms, sometimes that helps you raise your fees, but there's nothing wrong with being a small firm. You can, a boutique firm, and raising fees as well. So interesting.
So I'm looking for other questions, so we're definitely open. Just go ahead and type them in, and we'll be able to address them. I think one thing in addition that you can type in is if you would like some help in this area, if you'd like some help developing a framework for communicating your value, proving it in a way that will ultimately bring you bigger fees, would be happy to have a member of our team give you a quick call to see if it might be a fit, and then possibly arrange a longer call to discuss our programs. So you can type in "call me" if you'd like us to reach out to you. So let's see if there are any questions. We've got 58 people on the line, it looks like, so waiting for a little more interaction here. So Richard, you also had a second big idea letter that we talked about sharing for people who do book a call or do request a call. You want to just tell us a little bit about that? And then I do see a question from Rolf Lewis, one of our members here. Oh, he's thanking us. Okay.
I become smarter as an architect. Yeah. I used to be considered as a commodity, but today I became more respected architect in my market. Any architect who decides to have coaching with you is lucky. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Rolf. Yeah. So what was the question? Sorry.
Oh, there's a second big idea letter that goes a little deeper.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's right.
How can people qualify for that? And what is it? I mean, why would they want that?
Well, yeah. Okay. So the second big idea letter is the first big idea letter that you guys are requesting takes you through, I think it's two-part. So part one is about the theory. I'm just trying to remember. It's about a year ago that I wrote it. Part one's about the theory. Part two is what we give people. If anyone has a call with us, obviously we want people into our coaching program who are suitable. But if you're up for having a chat with our team to find out about it, we'll give you part two. And the part two goes into more detail and gives you examples, or gives you a sort of a whole case study of all of the 9 steps, what it would look like in action. So I'm not going to give that to people who aren't clients, but if you're open to having a chat with us, you can have a look at that, and that'll give you an idea on. You don't have to end up coming into our coaching groups, although you'd be smart if you did. But you'll get the second one as well. So,
okay. So Ross Can says wait lists are a nice idea, but many clients, even a few good ones, come to the project with a deficit of time.
Yeah.
So then they're under even more pressure, and you don't have to say that I have a wait list, so therefore don't call me if you can't wait 3 months because we can't start on anything. And then you can say, well, right now we're very busy, so we're very selective about who we take on. In general, it would be a little while before we could work with you, but let's see, tell us about your project. And then of course you can make an exception, and you can, potentially have a rush fee. I mean, there's even things like that. If you think about a print, you're getting some drawings printed or something like that, they may have 24-hour turnaround standard, but if you want it in 3 hours, then you pay more. There's nothing wrong with saying, well, we could fit you in, but I'd have to bump somebody else, so therefore, etc.
Yeah, definitely. Donna says, oh, hang on, I'm trying to read it all. It looks like it's split. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, look, having a wait list is a good idea. I mean, I know with the having a wait list, you control the wait list. It doesn't mean that because they come in last, they necessarily have to go to the back of the line. Don't forget, it's your line, right? You're in control of this line. You can slot them if you deem them to be a VIP. You can slot them higher up the line if it suits you, right? So,
all right. So here's one from Bruce Walker. Biggest problem I see encountered is that low fees are endemic. So
yeah,
architects
definitely
feel that they can't charge any higher. So I think this is a great one to talk about in terms of confidence, because I love one of the things you say is when you want to charge higher fees, just go ahead and change the fee. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, Bruce actually said it, and he said, so architects don't believe they can charge higher. The key word for me is believe, right? And that seems to be the biggest thing holding architects back, is their belief about their ability to charge higher. Now, you can charge higher, but you do need to do certain things maybe a little bit differently than you've currently been doing, and you certainly need to think differently than you've currently been thinking. So you're right. Low fees, and even doing, the other big one is free work, is endemic in the, I'm not sure if that's the right word for it, endemic, but is endemic in the construction industry. I think builders will go off and give a lot of free advice and, march around on sites. And architects then started doing it as well, giving away free sketches and sometimes entering competitions. And other industries don't do that. So that giving away of free work is the equivalent of discounting, really, isn't it? It's the equivalent of discounting your fees, because you do all this work up front, and it's got to stop. Like, as a whole industry, it's one thing Eric and I have been teaching for 10 years is don't do free work. Don't give out free advice. You can give out generic advice. There's a difference between giving out generic advice, which is, and giving out specific advice to a particular client who's asking a specific question about their specific, site or their project. You don't do that for free. And it doesn't matter that I could answer that question in 5 minutes or 1 minute. It would take me no time to answer it because I know the answer. It doesn't matter that you know the answer. It's taken you 25 years to be able to answer that question, right? So that's not, it doesn't make it, the fact you can give them an answer in 1 minute doesn't make the answer not valuable. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly valuable, but you devalue yourself, you devalue the industry, by just giving away free advice, which is of high value to clients. Giving away free design ideas devalues yourself. What have you got? That your design ideas is what contains all the IP. There's an argument, and some of our guys charge a lot more for the design, than the other more mechanical, the working drawings and all that type of stuff, which they can outsource. But the design is where the magic happens. Mm-hmm. So to give that is the most valuable portion of the whole thing. That's the strategy. It's how are we going to give you this result that we're going to give you, and then you design a solution. That shouldn't be charged, well, in theory, that shouldn't be charged at the same hourly rate as maybe doing the working drawings or the documentation, because anyone can do the documentation to some degree. But coming up with a brilliant idea for how to get that from there, that's the $1 million idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's far more valuable.
Well, there is a comment from Ross Kahn about premium pricing being a good solution, which might be offering several levels of service. So you have basic service that, you know, is a certain price. You have additional services, maybe it's construction administration, or you know, doing some interior, you know, procurement of interior components and fixtures and things like that, that you know, you can offer to the right type of clients who will say, oh, well, I'd really like that. I want the concierge service, and therefore they're willing to pay the premium. So that's a good point, Ross, there. There's another one here, Richard. This is actually from Bruce Mitchinson, longtime friend.
Right.
His name isn't showing up here because he didn't give permission in the StreamYard thing. But dealing with existing clients who keep coming back based on old expectations that you set way back. How would you approach that?
You know, they might have old expectations. That's a them problem, not a you problem, unless you take it on board, Bruce. You know this, right? You know this. So, yeah, times have changed. I've changed. You're busy. You're up in the Bay of Islands now, aren't you? So, or you were. Yeah, you don't have to. You just lay out. Everyone knows the construction industry's changed. They know everything's more expensive. They don't know. What they don't know is how expensive it is. So that, once again, this goes back to probably you being, you know, being a typical architect where you want to keep everybody happy. Mate, they'll be happy if they get to work with you, and just because they're a past client doesn't mean, yeah. So, you know.
So Umberto Guarcino, another one of our clients, been through our coaching program, said that you know, he's one of the ways that he's just maintaining and increasing his fees is that he never starts any activities if they don't get paid up front. So that work on spec that you often do, to go visit a site, to go do an analysis, to come up with a proposal with some budget numbers or whatever it is that takes time, you know, that can be charged for with what we call the low commitment consultation, or LCC. And it is valuable. It is giving information that reduces the risk, increases the likelihood that the client will make good decisions early on about what they can afford or what they need. The analysis can actually help them get the best solution rather than maybe the second or third best solution that maybe they came in with saying, I know exactly what I want. Maybe not. So Umberto, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, good to see some of our, you know, old members coming in.
Yeah, here's a current member, just joined a couple of months ago. Yeah, so thank you, James. Yeah, I know you've been really changing the way that you meet with clients, and one of the things that I won't go at length, but James, you said in one of the recent coaching calls was that you ask more questions than answer. In other words, in the initial meetings, you're probing to find out what they really want, what's important to them. And by doing that, they end up feeling very much understood. And of course, when you do say something or anything, you know, it can really be targeted to what they care about. And so I know that's, you know, you said that you've won some very enthusiastic clients who are just saying, you approach this very differently than the other architects who quickly rush into, well, that sounds great, I'll send you a proposal. You know, so awesome.
What's Donald? Oh, I see. You can put this on the screen. That's good.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Yeah, no, I see that. I'm legislated to charge a certain fee level as a landscape architect, building design consultant in UD. What's UD? User. What's UD stand for? Specialization makes marketing challenging actually for my colleagues, ? Specializations makes marketing challenging actually for my colleagues. I'm not sure what you actually mean there, Donna. Can you say that in a different way?
Mm-hmm.
I'm legislated to charge a certain fee level as a, okay, so the law says you have to charge a certain fee level. Okay, that's interesting. Whereabouts are you?
Universal Design, Donna, it says, is UD.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right.
You're legislated to charge a certain fee. Where are you based? Yeah. I mean, isn't that crazy where you're told what you have to charge if that's the case?
Mm-hmm.
I know there's certain things that architects have to put up with. One of them is, in some countries, or it used to be, you weren't allowed to market yourself. You weren't allowed to advertise yourself. And I think in Australia still, they've still got some of that hanging around.
Donna says that she's in Canada. So,
oh, right. Okay. Well, we're hearing a lot about Canada, aren't we? With their very, restrictive policies. I mean, I'm sure there are ways around it by not calling yourself a universal designer or something like that, but I don't have an immediate answer.
So this is where I'll just do a segue here, Richard. We can answer certain things in general. We can present ideas here in general to all of you, and hopefully you've been inspired by some of them and find them useful. But when you want to dig in and say, here's my situation, here's the challenge I'm having with this particular client, or just what your situation is, that's where the direct coaching comes in. And so Richard and I meet with our clients weekly. I handle one session, Richard handles the other one. And we probe when we ask questions. It's like James was saying, is making a difference for his work. And that's where we provide the value. Now, if you'd like more information about our programs, if you'd like to at least just have a chat with a member of our team to see how they work, just type into the questions area or your chat here saying, call me, and we'll arrange a short call. And then it could go into a longer call later if it seems like it could be a fit. We work with our architects and designers around the world. We have a program that we've proved out with over 800 architects and designers to date. And we'd love to help you get big fees, work with better clients, and reach Sunshine Island. You can see in my background there, Sunshine Island. And that's really where you charge healthy fees, work with clients you enjoy working with on projects that give you a lot of fulfillment. And that's where we want to see you in coming weeks, months, and for the rest of your career. So Richard, thank you for a great presentation. Do you have any closing words?
Yeah, I do. Look, most of you are, this is a really good topic, and I'm glad we did it today. But fees is an area where architecture as a profession is, you guys are not being taught how to present your fees. You're not being taught how to charge higher fees. You kind of end up thinking that you need to win projects by putting in a competitive price. And that only applies winning projects by competitive price when the client sees you as being just the same. But in fact, I'll just quickly go into this thing here on the mind map. Fees, let's see, buyer psychology. Yeah, the client needs to understand the difference between you and everybody else. Okay, so whenever we're trading money for time or money for value, it's quid pro quo, which means this for that. I'm going to give you this, you're going to give me that. Now you need to be giving someone, if they're going to give you $1, you need to be giving something to the client that is worth less than $1 to you, but worth more than $1 to them, right? So, and therefore, you need to understand the psychology of what buyers are thinking. They need to be able to understand the difference. And if they can't understand the difference between you and anyone else, then they will buy on price. And if you're finding a lot of people having fee resistance and things like that, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is they don't see you as different to anyone else, so therefore they might as well go with the cheapest. The good news is you can actually do something about that. And it goes back to this one around value, right? When you can learn to communicate your value, this is the most important things you can do, this stuff here. Target high value clients, deliver high value results, have a high value process, limit your supply, prove it. You do these things, then people do see the difference between you and everybody else. And it's the same with you. You don't, when you're buying your clothes, you could probably buy cheaper clothes that would do the job of keeping you warm. You could buy a cheaper car. You could buy a cheaper house. You could buy cheaper shoes than what you're wearing, right? But you choose these things because you in your own mind, either emotionally or logically, can see the value of paying more for a better car, right? You don't have $1,000 car. You have a $10,000 or a $20,000 car, right? Because you see the value. Now, when it comes to an architect, are all architects equal? Of course not. I could get 5 different architects and I could give them the same brief and they'd all end up producing something different, right? One architect's work will be more valuable than the other to the client, right? Because they're all going to be different. So one's going to be more valuable, right? Now, you've got to master the art of explaining why you're different and why you're more valuable. And if you can't, you'll continue to be shopped on price. That's just a fact, right? Until you learn to master this thing here, you'll be shopped on price and you'll get fee resistance. So it's a bad thing that you're getting fee resistance, but actually look at it as a good thing, is that you're kind of one step away. If you are different, and I'm sure you are different, and you know how to explain it, then you can sort of get out of this, people buying the cheapest. It's ridiculous that people would buy the cheapest architect when the difference between what you can deliver is so vast. But it's partly the client's problem that they don't know how to pick the best architects. It's also your problem. But if you fix that problem by being good at explaining it, by deploying these 6 laws, then you can kind of get away from being shopped on price. No doubt about that, right? No doubt about that, right? Now, you either work it out for yourself or we're happy to help you. If you type in call, we'll give you a quick run through on what we do. And if it's a fit, we'll give you the, different options for coaching. If not, that's okay as well. But, opportunity knocks. So, I'd love to work with you and help you. If you're open-minded and if you're open to being coached, then get that. And we'll also give you, I think we're giving you, anyone can get the first big idea letter. If you schedule a call, just a quick chat with us, you'll get the second one, which goes into detail and goes into specifics about, how we take you through the 9 steps. So get that. You're not committed to anything. It's just a chat. All right. So that's my final thought, Eric. Thank you very much for hosting us. And thank everybody for turning up on this day. Hopefully you got some great value around high fees, and hopefully it's shifted your thinking or made you not so certain to some degree, made you not so certain about the way you're currently doing things, and created a little bit of discomfort in the fact that there are things you can do. And, we'd like you to do it. All right. Any final questions?
And you can post questions in the event page wherever you are after the event, and we'll follow up with you as well. So, even though we're going to be turning off our broadcast in a moment, please feel free to follow up with us through the comments or send us an email to support@archmarketing.org. Thanks, Richard. Thank you all for joining us. And we will see you again soon for another live stream. Be well.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.